Hello, everybody, and welcome to another day of life at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I'll be narrating the cameras for the next 3 hours. Hopefully, some of you will be excited, and of course, I'm looking forward to hearing from every single one of you that are watching from all corners of the world. So remember to comment either on the YouTube stream, or if you are watching on the WildEarth app, you can, of course, comment and ask your questions that way. But first up, on this wonderful day, we're at the Old Donyo camera, which is in Kenya, my favorite camera. I think I'm going to say my favorite camera every single time we get onto it. And it's bustling with wildlife, which is a great start, because yesterday it was a little bit on the quiet side for about, I think it was about the first hour or so. So it is really nice to see so many animals around. And of course, I feel like the residents at the Waterhole here is, of course, there's lots of Maasai giraffe. The zebras are always on time, and we're bound to see some elephants. Well, hopefully we'll see some elephants. Yesterday we actually didn't see one elephant at this particular Waterhole. So hopefully things will change and we'll be in some luck. But if you have just joined us, welcome. Pop a comment and let me know who you are, where you're from, and if you have any pets. I'm just joking. You can tell me if you've got any pets if you like. Just trying to get the conversation started. But I'm sure a couple of you are only logging on now. I also know for some parts of the world it's very late at night and you're probably going to bed, but don't go to bed just yet. Have a chat with me. A couple of doves all just flying in now. There was a huge flock of them, in fact. And off they go. Right, let's go and see what the weather is like in the other parts of Africa, because it's just such a beautiful day in Kenya. So hopefully it's the same all over. And of course, we are back. It seems as though the weather's not too bad all over. I'm sitting in the Eastern Cape, so kind of where Amakala is, but not really much further south of that. Probably about a 2.5 hour, maybe a bit longer, maybe almost a 3 hour drive from where Amakala is. That's quite far north of St. Francis Bay. That's literally the little place that I'm sitting in. Oh, there we go. Super zoom in on the giraffe's face, which is wonderful. This is a nice close up. Again, I speak about this quite frequently, but I think one of the most amazing things that we have with WildEarth and of course African is the ability to be able to zoom right up close onto animals without really getting into their space. Of course, you can do the same thing with a pair of binoculars, but not everybody has access to these wild animals. So this is a male Maasai giraffe standing nice and tall, scanning about, occasionally chewing the cud, as you can see. Yeah, he's moving his ears, just listening. All the oxpeckers now landing on top of him. Would it be a giraffe without an oxpecker? I don't know. We're very fortunate, of course, to see so many oxpeckers these days because they weren't doing so well a couple of years ago. But I reckon they haven't been up to too much, as in Kenya at the moment. It does take a little bit of time to warm up. I was just there and it was quite chilly in the mornings. And for those of you that are watching, know that Tucker features every now and then, and he's made his way outside. And I'm not sure how you got outside. Get inside the house. And I have to watch because, of course, there's it's open. He's quite good. He doesn't like to wander, but anyways, there's no fence where I am at the moment. So I have to probably go and catch him at some point. I'll leave you with some action though on the cameras. And just like that, all the zebra are completely gone, and it looks like the giraffe is going to make his way out too. Oh yeah, sorry, Tucker's my dog, in case you were wondering. He kind of just features every now and then. Although he's not supposed to be a part of the show, he finds his way into my life all the time. Cheers, oxpeckers. They're not quite ready to leave the waterhole by the looks of it. They're going to go in search of something else. I always wonder what determines where the oxpeckers will go. Like, why do they just leave a perfectly good animal and then go to something else? But anyways, now that it's a little bit quiet on the Oldonyo camera, let's go and check out Canthus Dam, which should be also, just like it, the Oldonyo was, also bustling with life. Look at all the flamingos. There are so many of them, all gathered together. This looks like a much bigger group than what we had yesterday. We only had a couple. Some of them taking off, but as they typically do in the morning before the day starts. Although it looks quite overcast here, so maybe it's a bit on the chilly side. They might not be heading off to wade through the water to feed on various algae and shrimps and whatever sort of little crustaceans could be in here. I suppose it depends which species it is, right? So don't both necessarily eat the exact same thing. Are we able to zoom in and have a closer look at some of these flamingos? So you might notice there's a little bit of a delay, but don't stress about that. These things, of course, happen. There they are. You see what's kind of happening there. Hello, isn't that quite cool to fill an entire screen with flamingos? Perhaps if we can we go up just a little bit more so that we can have the flamingos at the bottom, lining sort of the bottom. That might be quite nice. My OCD is killing me. There we go. Thank you so much. That is wonderful. Aha, there we go. Now we can see nice and close. Oh, you know what? I think it might be a little bit on the windy side today. You can see the camera is shaking quite a bit. So perhaps this really close view might not be suited, and we'll maybe have to save that for a day when the wind isn't so bad. See, it's just struggling a little bit, creating a bit of shake, which is a pity, but we can't have it perfect every single day. I suppose that is just one of those things, really. Some of them got their heads all the way down, which is quite funny. They do feed in a bizarre manner. I would most certainly like to be snorkeling around there, although the water's not particularly deep. I'll have to perform and behave like a crocodile. But can you imagine seeing what their heads must look like from under the water? It would be quite cool. I don't know how clear that water is. I suspect it's probably quite quite murky, seeing as though they're constantly moving through the water, stirring up the mud. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times over, but how flamingos like to feed. Obviously, like we've been saying, they've got their heads up and down, or up and down, upside down, but they also have these little cone-like structures in their beak, which help trap little food, so little like microorganisms, algae, brine, shrimp, all that type of stuff. But they all flush water in and out of their beaks that way. Quite cool. I suppose like a little bit of a sieve. Ready? Catherine? There we go. Old Faithful joining. Thank you so much. You've really saw some birding and other animals. Yeah, we've still got to do our bird list. Thank you for reminding me. I actually have it open on that. I need to make a page for Campus Dam. Let's add that. Okay, and we know right off the bat we've got lesser and greater flamingos, which is nice. So we'll start off with that. And then see what else sort of comes around. I think it might be a little bit tricky, especially to see some of the other small waders today, just because we aren't able to zoom in with the amount of wind. Look at how rapid the water is moving. Yesterday it was kind of beautiful. It was flat. You could even see the reflections quite clearly of these individuals. But this is the time of the year where the wind does blow across South Africa. So we tend to kind of struggle with that. I'm actually wondering what type of water occurs at Campus Dam. Is it quite sodic? Or is it fresh water? Have a look. That's always quite interesting. I said I've really seen flamingos in very sodic areas, so with high concentrations of salt, essentially, down in the Eastern Cape, and then obviously in Kenya and Tanzania. So the habitat is quite different, and that's also going to change what type of food could an algae will potentially build up in there. So I'm just sort of trying to find out, but I can't really find anything that typically speculates about it.
We love all the support. We read all the comments, and now we want to acknowledge our biggest fans. Do you know when Ribbon was seen last? Or the names of June's cubs? Do you remember the last time we were up close and personal with an elephant? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are in for a treat. WildEarth's Fan of the Month. We are looking for you. For more details, make sure to read our monthly mailer and keep an eye out on our social media pages. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
view of these giraffe. We don't have it. We can maybe we can just kind of frame them up. It'll be nice to watch them closely. So as they sort of walk and tangle their legs, it's quite the dance. Oh, hang on. Actually, it was a little bit deceiving. They're not the one individual on the right's not too much smaller than the male on the left. There's a slight height advantage, but really not much at all. And now they're going to do the tango. No, giraffe, come back here. I think this is quite a nice view that we have of them. Now we can really sort of see what kind of goes on here. This is quite typical of male giraffe, to sort of butt heads like this. It doesn't seem to be a serious battle, but of course it's important to stay on top of your game, and the only way to do that is to constantly keep practicing. Because as you can imagine, a serious technique is involved here, right? I don't think it's as easy as it seems swinging your head around. The more you practice, the more potent your blows could potentially be. And who wants to be in a boxing match for 15 rounds? If you can get a knockout in the first round, well, that's the best. And if not, you're just going to keep tiring yourself out. So it will be quite strategic, especially when male big dominant bulls are having a go at one another for potentially mating rights. Perhaps there's females in estrus, and then they'll literally bash heads and swing them around like that. So they've got to be careful because they can also get quite hurt in the process. Stacey, you've said it's stunning to watch. Absolutely. It's always special to see something like this. I don't think I'm just trying to think. I should know this off the top of my head. I've never seen a proper giraffe battle. I remember years and years ago there was a documentary. I'm assuming it was by Sir David Attenborough, or narrated by him, and where they showed two male giraffe pretty much fighting to the death. Actually, I think it was on his series called Africa, which was quite a few years ago. Was I in high school still? I can't remember. Um, and that was something really amazing to see. And I don't think it had really been recorded before, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the giraffe died, if I remember correctly. It was quite a thing. So other than seeing it on TV, I've never seen a serious battle. If you've seen a serious battle before, let us know. Count yourself incredibly lucky to have witnessed something along those lines. And it's funny because, we spend hours and hours and hours and hours out in the bush. Like, I can't imagine how many hours I've clocked watching giraffe and never seen a big fight. Oh, hang on. Now it's picking up a bit. Look how they're even pushing each other with their chests. trying to get their necks in the right position. It's unbelievable how flexible those necks are. And considering they're so long, almost looks like they're sort of more having a pushing match than anything. And that's the goal. If you can tip your opponent over, I feel like that's enough to settle the score, and you probably are the more dominant individual. It doesn't help that they are on pretty unlevel surface. You can see there they're on a little bit on the grass, but that that was a useless swing of the neck. One sort of moving off. We'll follow them for a bit and see if it gets a bit more serious or if they're just going to spar. But the giraffe on the left is definitely quite brave. Aha! Mystery solved. Look at this. Here comes a female that's just arrived on the scene. And now you can clearly see how these two individuals are quite curious and interested in the female. The slightly smaller male, even more. I think there might be a couple more giraffe, seen as though the big male has just twisted his neck around and is gazing off into the distance. We might get some action around the old Donyo camera today. Can we have a look at the younger male giraffe that was tailing after that female? I don't know if they're perhaps still around. Maybe, just maybe. Hi, zebras. Maybe we can still see them because I'd like to understand what's kind of going on here a bit more. There they are, just to the right. This camera is just phenomenal. Okay, that's interesting. So, the younger male is very much intrigued by this female. You can see he keeps sticking his head down towards her nether regions, just testing to see if she is coming into estrus. And with the male on the left, he's definitely older and more experienced. If this female was an estrus, I don't think he'd take too kindly to that young male pursuing her. So perhaps he was just sort of putting that young male in line when they were butting heads and swinging their necks around as if to say, hey, listen, like I'm the main individual here, and I'm happy if you just linger around, but don't try anything. And these younger males, of course, will take many, many, many chances when there's females around.
Are you yearning for a private virtual WildEarth safari adventure with our naturalists and crew? We have got you covered. Sign up to be an explorer before the 15th of August and you could win a private safari experience. Make lifelong wildlife memories with either Steve,
thank you for joining us and have a fantastic morning,
or Cedric. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Here's a camera that I have not visited before. I have no idea how to pronounce this name. You're all going to laugh at me. But it's in Namibia. I know I should know. Of course, how to say this. I can't say it. It's too terrifying, that word. I have been told many times how to say this, but it scares me. That's very intimidating. I don't know how to put some of those letters together. No, I'll have to practice in the mirror a little bit later. Apologies with that. Happening around just edges. There's something flying around. Swift. I can hear a small child crying. Carrying some chatter. Okay, let's see if this is a little bit better. Can we have a look, the bottom left corner of this little pad? There seems to be some movement around the water's edge. It looks like something is swimming. So I wonder what little birds are there. Seeing as though we're doing our little bird list, which I've lost. I'm a magician. I'm in the wrong career. Are those craiks maybe? By that sound that we just heard. Hopefully we can have a look in a moment. No, those are Egyptian geese. And then what are those other things there? Oh, coots. Not coots. It's so hard to see. What are those? Are they dab chicks? I forgot the name. Those little black things there. Come out so I can see you. It's quite tricky to try and figure out what the birds are from the screen, because obviously using a pair of binoculars is much easier, or obviously when you're super zoomed in, that's better. I forgot the word dab chick for a moment. Not dab chick, that's an old name, little grebe. Can you believe? Hey, it's been a long time since I've seen them. I think the last time I saw a little grebe probably would have been at Chitwa Dam, to be quite honest. A long time ago. I don't get to spend many days out on the water, although I should probably go and investigate around the area where I'm at the moment, because there's quite a few wetland systems and I can see some things. I did see an oyster catcher yesterday, which was really cool, because I haven't seen oyster catchers for a long time, but obviously you need to be at the beach to see, or at least the coast, to be able to see one of those. Okay, so let's do this place. I don't know how to say it. I can't. Akakuji. No, I can't. I'm gonna. You know what I'm gonna actually have to do is write it down phonetically, and then, like I said, practice in the mirror. So please excuse me. Um, these names are really difficult. Think I'm much better with using either Shangaan or Xhosa or Zulu words. This one is tricky. I suppose we all have that though. Okay, so we've got Egyptian geese, obviously. All right, and then I'm pretty sure those are little grebes. Shall we confirm with a call? Shall we listen to it? Let's listen to it. Where's my bird app? There we go. Because I've forgotten what they sound like. It's hard to keep up. Sounds. Yes. Definitely little grebe. So if it wasn't for that call, I don't know if I would have been able to have identified them from this distance. And the tech team have come through and they've saved the day. Okokuyo. Okokuyo, Okokuyo, Okokuyo. I'm still going to write it down though. There you go. I'll have to share on social media how I phonetically wrote it. But I'd love to also hear, like, how did some of you, when you first read that name, how would you have pronounced it? Or did you put it into Google and then ask Google to, do the pronunciation for you? Because I obviously cheat and I do that quite often. So thank you very much for that. It's actually telling me I need to join the Safari Live morning meeting. I can't because I'm here. I'll read the minutes. I can also hear the blacksmith lapwings. Or something. I don't know what that was. Yeah, it is a blacksmith lapwing. Where are you? Where are you? Show yourself. It's also hard to pinpoint sounds on here. It's not the easiest. Okokuyo. 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 And you're going to hear me just saying that randomly throughout the show, so apologies for that. Ooh, warthogs. No, zebra. What's wrong with me? It's so far away. They look so small, but there's animals that are coming down. Okay, there's definitely zebra. But what are the other small things? Are they impala? I have no idea. You know what I keep trying? You know what I keep doing? I actually have my binoculars with me, and they're literally on the nightstand. And I keep trying to reach for them, as if that's going to help me to put my binoculars up to see what's happening on the screen. I think they're impala, and two zebra, and then hello, and a Corey bustard. Look there to the right of the zebra, just walking. That's a cool bird to have. A Corey bustard. I was actually really lucky. You get to see them quite often in areas like this, and even in the northern parts of South Africa, and of course in the Kruger National Park. They're amazing birds. They are so big and ferocious predators. I've seen them eat all sorts of things. Well, that's quite nice to see. Lorraine, you said go there, you'll learn it immediately. Yes, because I'll probably be teased for not being able to say it correctly. I feel like I'm just teased my whole life. It is what it is. It's not even bullying, it's character development, character building. But yeah, I mean, we can't all be perfect. It's hard. Sometimes it's really hard to pronounce half these words. So I feel like I make a lot of mistakes in life in general. But I know that most of you will agree. and that it's not quite easy. Actually, one of my favorite things is I mean, I don't talk about the same reserves over and over, but is Karicha Game Reserve. Most people have no idea how to pronounce it, and the owners actually said to me once if they could do anything, or if they could not start over, if they could change something, they'd change the name of the reserve to something easier that people can pronounce, because most people end up calling it Carriega Reserve, and you can't blame them, right? But yeah, Carriager is not the way. And there's lots of different examples out there. Corey Bustard, what are you gonna do? I've never seen a Corey Bustard drinking water before. Maybe today will be the day. There are quite a few bird species that don't necessarily have to drink water because they get enough moisture from the food that they are sort of feeding on. I'm wondering if Corey Bustards are in the same boat. Trying to see, have I seen any of the bustard species? I've never seen any bustard species actually drinking water. But why are you moving closer to the watering hole? It looks so arid and dry. It really doesn't look like there's much going on. Obviously, you've got the lovely tree line in the background. It sounded like a spider hunting wasp actually just flew past the camera. Did you hear that? That soft helicopter sound. Very typical of the spider hunting wasps. There's also a patch of brown sort of dirt to the right of the zebras, and I can see what looks like piles of dung. I'm wondering if this belongs maybe to rhinos. I don't know if we can maybe have a look. I don't know how much detail we're actually going to be able to see, but that's obviously quite a prominent feature. And with water being so sparse in Namibia, this is going to be a common point for a lot of animals. It's really difficult to tell what's going on there. There's just such a prominent patch. Like I said, from what I can see, it really looks like rhinos have been there. Just those little pockets of dung, and even just further to the right of it. So it would be amazing to see black rhinos here. I'm not sure if you've seen black rhinos on the camera before. They like to come down specifically and drink at night. Of course, they'll come during the day, but I've seen again some amazing documentaries where, and specifically in Namibia, where the black rhinos will come down, and sure, many of them, and sort of socialize around the waterhole. We don't really know much about honestly the behavior of black rhinos, because everything you read in books talks about them like specifically being quite solitary. But in my personal experience, I've seen them with so many individuals, other rhinos, and not just necessarily like say females with calves, which we can typically see with white rhinos is quite a normal thing on them, and subadults too. But black rhinos are in fact social. I even had an amazing experience once with a friend of mine that's the assistant reserve warden on a reserve. And one of his responsibilities was to take his dog, it's a German short-haired pointer, and go out and track rhinos just to make sure that's, they're okay, especially the individuals that they haven't seen for a while. They obviously have lots of camera traps up in their sort of favorite spaces, which helps in logging sightings. But when they haven't been seen, then it's important to get onto their tracks and then try and find them. So I've gone out with him a couple of times, and it was amazing. We had black rhinos mating on foot, and there were 4 individuals there. And he, of course, knows the rhinos so well. He told me exactly which ones there were, and there was only one female with a calf, and there were there was another adult female, and then, of course, this big bull. So that was quite fascinating to see. I don't know if I'll ever see anything like that again in my life. Corey busted. Oh, and a springbuck. And what are those, pied crows? Well, they're ravens. So we're actually getting quite a bit here. It's taking its time, but it's worth it.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search #WildEarthFanOfTheMonth and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily.
Right. Springbok. Not really coming down now. There's just that one individual. There's sort of also just standing, staring. What's that bird? Hear it. I have no idea what that is. Have any of you heard that before? Has anyone identified that call? Tricky. What should be a bird that I've heard many times but I've just forgotten the call? to be some small birds, though, just plunging into the water. Again, it's tricky. There's a couple of different birds that will do that, but the ones that just sort of swoop down now to have a drink, very typical of swifts and swallows. Didn't see any obvious markings on the. Very difficult to see. No noticeable identifying features, unfortunately. Well, there's a big bird that's landed. Oh, it's another pied crow. So how intelligent they are. They are skilled at solving puzzles and um, little games, that type of thing. Many studies of them, but I really enjoy their vocalizations. They've also got a huge vocabulary. They can also mimic. They can be quite a nuisance. Obviously, they need to live too, but they can be a nuisance to wildlife because they're kind of like fork-tailed drongos in the sense that they don't take any nonsense at all, and they will chase animals off of carcasses because opportunistic, they'll scavenge on things too. And we had that amazing sighting once with a pied crows. There was a flock of them. With I think I was talking about it yesterday actually in Sumi in the tree, and that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that before. Where the crows in such a group, I mean, you think it's a leopard, right? What's going to chase a leopard away other than potentially another big cat? Maybe wild dogs will them in a tree, or hyenas, or then of course the bigger mammal species. But a flock of crows. But they were just so persistent. They've also got sharp beaks, so I don't think that would have been quite pleasant for young Nsumi, who is Kochava's daughter. It would be quite interesting to have a crow potentially as a pet. It would have to be a free roaming crow, though. Otherwise, it looks fairly quiet. It's one of my dream sightings is to see elephants that are very sort of light coloration with the white soil dust that they toss over themselves. Maybe one day we'll be lucky. I'm wondering if it is possible, if we can maybe head over to any of the other cameras and see what's happening there. Okay, I think what we're going to do now is let's go to one of the cameras that have been added. It's in Zimbabwe, and it's a area called Tembo Plains. Right, so they are back. Termites. Well, you can't see the termites, but you can see the structures that they've created. And baboons. We are in one of my most favorite areas. We're in Zimbabwe, obviously, but I used to stare across and look at this wilderness area for a very long period of my life. So I used to work in the Lower Zambezi National Park. It's on the opposite side of this area in Zambia, though. We've got the big, beautiful Zambezi River, which sounds like you can hear. And it's wonderful what Great Plains has actually done to this area. It used to be a hunting conservancy for many, many years. In fact, they started hunting in 1957. And obviously, we know that a lot of the wilderness areas are still around because they were protected, in the hunting sort of environment. But it is good to see that those areas are being kind of taken over now and sort of implying more of a photographic safari experience, which is great. So these populations of animals will definitely improve. They'll start to be more relaxed with vehicles, but it's going to take some time. But I used to stare across the river and see the massive herds of eland that would come down to the plains, which is so beautiful. But it's in almost not quite an uninhabited area, but there's very little going on there. So it's like a true wilderness space. And it's big. It's big as well. I mean, it's 290,000 acres, and it's sort of slap bang, not quite slap bang, but it's kind of obviously the Lower Zambezi Valley. And then you've got Mana Pools, which is a world-renowned national park. That's just a little bit away of it. All kind of forms one of the boundaries. So yeah, so a very special place. Like sort of a nice little swampy area. There's some birds that are about to come to the center of the screen. Maybe a little bit to the left. They're just in sort of the green, where the green patch ends before the grass starts. Let's see if we can have a look. We've just missed the birds again. I think we need to go to the right. No, that's not where the birds are. So I would very much like, seeing as though we're creating a bird list, to head on to, keep panning to the right, past the waterbuck, keep going. It looked like there were black and white birds in the greenery. So still quite a bit to the right. Okay, never mind about the birds. We'll try and get them another day. Anyways, there we go. Let's maybe just stop it there because there's quite a bit, and if we can just lower the feed a little bit. No, please don't miss the birds again. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's have a look. Let's start far away. So in the center of the screen, you might be able to see that there are some birds in the sort of wetland, swampy area. There goes a heron. If we can just maybe zoom in. In the center of the screen, there's some greenery, there's a wetland area, and there are very clearly, it looks like two birds moving around.
Not everyone gets excited to hear a leopard chuff, spot a pangolin, or see a real impala rut. But if you are wild about the wild, you can become part of a community of like-minded nature lovers and share authentic wildlife experiences with the world. Join the Explorers Club and you will also enjoy the many benefits that come with it too. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature. Right, let's see kind of what else is happening here. Obviously, it's a bit tricky to see. Let's maybe go onto one of these birds that are slightly closer. Otherwise, I can't really see what behaviors are being, well,
or being exhibited by the animals. So I just need to apologize for the delay. I'm obviously not controlling the cameras, and there seems to be some kind of disconnect between us, but let's see if it improves. I'm trying to figure out what that black and white bird is. We've got quite a long beak and a lot of white and black, which suggests that it's most likely an African sacred ibis, just probing away. And that's a perfect area. Just throughout this low Zambezi ecosystem, I can't tell you how many of these wetland systems occur. Obviously, on Tembo Plainside, Sapi, they don't necessarily have the big forests of winterthorn trees. It's obviously arid on both sides, but the terrain is quite different. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? So you can see during rainy season, which is not at this time of the year, it's really dry at the moment, and it's only going to get drier and drier. The rainy season only occurs once a year, but it's an extended period of time. So typically they can expect the rains to arrive in November. A lot of the camps end up closing, especially on the other side of the river, around the second week of November, to try and make sure they get all their staff out, all the guests out before the torrential downpour. Because if you get stuck when the rain sets in, good luck trying to get out. Now, there's lots of other bird species, but it's just a little bit difficult to see what on earth they are. There's another small bird, it looks black, that's bopping around. They've got a long tail. Is it a Meave starling, maybe? But I have no idea. Right, let's give these birds a break and head to some other birds and see what the flamingos are up to. Wind's still blowing quite heavily, unfortunately, for these birds, but a lot of them have woken up from their rest after a long night, although I'm sure some of them will still keep feeding throughout the night, each to their own. I bet we've all woken up in the middle of the night, hungry for a snack, make our way down to the fridge. Oh, that's an interesting scene. We've got a lot of greater flamingos now. Much taller, quite often quite lighter in color. You'll see if we pop their heads up, you'll see that that beak is not so dark. You can hear how the wind is sort of howling, which is not ideal. So I don't think we'll spend too much time at Campus Dam today. Obviously, it's quite unpleasant as the camera moves around, but there's not really much we can do that. That just really goes to show how the wind is truly gusting. You can see how the grass is all bent over, and the small little shrubs that don't have any leaves, they're also being affected quite badly. But that doesn't seem to bother the birds too much. They'll just sort of carry on with their day. They're uh, so used to all these different extreme conditions. And we've obviously got the big blackbirds just floating around there. They're quite large. So red-knobbed coots. I think maybe what we can do is let's go to another camera. Let's go somewhere where perhaps it's not as windy, and maybe in the next hour or so the wind will drop and we'll be able to come back here. Typically the wind doesn't blow all day long, except if you're in the Eastern Cape. I am known as the windiest area, but normally it'll like blow in the afternoon or the morning and then sort of settle down. Right, let's go across to coral, because we haven't seen that capra this morning. Maybe we'll have some impala or something even more exciting. Aha, not impala, I was wrong. But in fact, zebra. And it looks like a Burchell starling on the ground. We can add that one to the list as well. Where's my book? Going to make another page for a coral. I'm just sort of making the pages as we go along. I think we'll see. Maybe the zebra already have come down to have a drink. There's still quite a bit of vegetation, not such tasty grass, that they might linger around for a little bit longer. Very still and peaceful. You can see the wind is also blowing a bit here. Perhaps it's just windy all around today. I'm looking out the window and it's actually not too bad, yes. Surprisingly. Ooh, you know what I'm finding so fascinating? Do you see the dead tree that's on the right-hand side of the screen that kind of bends over? Is that a big hollow inside the tree? I'm wondering. Or I wonder what's happened to it. Was it struck by lightning? Did the elephant ring bark it and then it's just naturally died over the years? I'm assuming it must have been a marula at one point. Maybe we can have a closer look at that dead tree on the right. It's kind of the white one, and it looks like it's got a big black patch on it with some shrubs growing just below it. Ooh, still tricky to see, but it does look like there's quite a bit of a cavity. I'm wondering if there must have been a branch that went off to the side and that's potentially broken. But that cavity could be quite interesting. It could be a number of species of animals that could be living in there. It's quite big. Could be a great nesting site for southern ground hornbills, which frequent the area. Obviously, in Koro, as I know a lot of you have seen, obviously you've got the sort of the savanna with the trees, but there's a big open grassland area in front of the lodge. And that's perfect habitat for southern ground hornbills, obviously move around. And it's really, really big, in fact. I don't know how sort of deep it goes down. Obviously, if it just drops in all the way, impossible for any bird species to sort of nest in there. I'm sure squirrels have used it as a hidey hole before, and I can't even imagine how many reptile species will be moving up and down. TS, you said that there's got to be a little something in there. I really agree. Unfortunately, even when we're at Juma, we're not able to traverse on Nkoro. And where this camera is situated, it wouldn't be too appropriate to just drive there, especially if there were guests in the lodge. But I'd like to poke my head inside there from a safe distance. Also, snakes could be using something like that. You could have a black mamba or a cobra species spending a bit of time in there. It's amazing where I've seen cobras before up in trees doing all sorts of crazy things. I think sometimes we think cobras are capable of climbing trees, but they definitely are. Now, if it was enclosed a little bit more, that would be perfect as well. Even some owl species could utilize something like that. And it doesn't look like there's anything in there. I think maybe the other thing is that it could actually be too exposed. Even a nice little perch, though, just up and off to the right for birds. Maybe the starlings. Those virtual starlings that we saw, even the greater blue-eared and the Cape starlings, They utilize holes in trees. So this might be a bit on the big side for them. They want something slightly narrower and more of a sort of hole rather than a gaping hole. And too big for hornbills. There would be a lot of mud that you'd have to encase on that entrance to get it to close. It's just wonderful how all these different bird species have just got such different nesting habits. I suppose if they all use the same materials or, utilize natural cavities, it would be a bit difficult and be a lot of competition for breeding sites. But no one's come to perch there. Okay, maybe we could have a little look and scan around and see what else is coming down, or perhaps we'll find another bird perched on a tree. For those of you that are watching for the first time on the live cameras, live at the waterhole, we promise there are waterholes around. One of the other things that we do is we try and zoom in and find all sorts of other little creatures that might be lurking around, because they are also part of the ecosystem, the greater ecosystem of life around the waterhole, and they'll potentially be utilizing those water sources too. Now the wind is also really picking up in the Sabi sand. Morgan, you've said that nothing goes to waste in the wild. No, you're quite right. There's no such thing as wastage. Animals get very creative with how they utilize different objects, I suppose. Obviously, some creatures have roles of decomposing, which is very important. Obviously, we've got the main ones that we typically see, which are the predators, or the scavengers of the sky, like vultures, for example, hyenas. I mean, even lions and other predators, big cats and stuff, could also be considered as to assist with, decomposing carcasses. But then, of course, we have all these invertebrates that we don't get to see because we don't spend enough time looking at the ground, and of course, then we have the issue of not being able to see what's going on within the soils below the surface of the earth. And so that can be quite tricky. And they also come through lots of little things like carrion beetles, which are so fascinating to watch, actually. That's one thing I miss, being on bushwalk and being able to show you all those things. Oh, look at that. I can't believe it has taken us so long to get a hornbill on camera. There is a southern yellow-billed hornbill, which is crazy. Obviously, they're like one of the most common bird species, especially around the low veld. What are you after? Are you looking for anything at this time of the year? Not many bugs about, a couple though. They don't all quite go, when I say dormant, it's not really, not quite dormant, they're just in diapause. A period where, or the transition period between eggs and instars, or whatever, depending on their life cycle, and then becoming adults. It's quite strategic how they do this. Off it runs again. Apparently nothing there. Looks like there's a bit of buffalo dung that's also scattered around. That will be a hotspot for the bird. But it looks like most of it has already been picked open. Can you see that? Well, that's exactly what these birds will do too.
Are you passionate about photography and the wild wonders of Africa? Introducing Africam's incredible virtual wildlife photo competition, where you don't need a fancy camera or to travel across the continent to capture breathtaking shots. All you need is your love for wildlife and our live Waterhole cameras. Simply tune in and snap your favorite moments as they unfold in real time. Start clicking and share the magic of Africa with the world.
There are the legs of the zebras marching along. And off they go. At least the hornbill is still around. No, come back. Hornbill, we need you. Typical, gonna hide behind the branches. Just our luck. Oh no, come back, it speaks English. desperately checking all the little piles of dung. I mean, look how desperate it is right there. I mean, there's like scraps of dung, just little pieces that have obviously been flicked away from a larger pile of buffalo dung. And if you're wondering or have never really seen this before, even are just interested in learning about track and sign of animals, and this is something that we see quite regularly. And the biggest question we have is who opened up the buffalo dung? So here it is. Back to its little pile of ants and termites. Maybe it gave it a break to let the colony recoup, assess the damage, and now it's taking full advantage. There might have also been some termites that were living in the dung itself. And so it's also important that we don't necessarily just destroy and tear up dung when we don't realize what's actually living inside there. And in fact, that again is also a little microhabitat. Kathy Lee, you said, Taylor, I love how you get excited seeing and hearing animals, birds on the cameras like we do. Absolutely. You should see me in like real life. I'm actually the worst person in the whole wide world because I'll have having a serious conversation with something and then I'll see something or hear something amazing. And then I forget that I was even having a conversation. I don't know why, but nature really stimulates me. I struggle to focus a lot, but there's so much going on when you look outside. And then, of course, with the the smells and the feel, having just even the wind blowing against your skin, all of that is just really, really good for me. But now the wind has picked up quite a bit. I think it's going to be fairly windy this afternoon on the sunset safari. It wasn't too bad when we first arrived at the camera, but now, of course, you can see it shaking around. So that's not somebody holding it. Of course, these are uh, cameras operated from remote locations. Lenny, you've said it reminds me of the dwarf mongoose playing dead. Uh, I should tell the story. Okay, I can share the story, absolutely. It's a behavior that I've witnessed that I don't think I'll ever see again. I always say that. But it had the most amazing sighting. And, you know, we read so much stuff in books. When we have people who are studying to train and become safari guides, it's not just important that they know facts about wildlife. They obviously need to be able to interpret behaviors. And then the other thing is that we need to also understand the symbiotic or the and also the interspecific relationships between different species. And the mongoose, the dwarf mongoose specifically, and the hornbill species, the southern red-billed and the southern yellow-billed hornbills, have this amazing relationship with one another. Now, of course, these are all just theories. We'll never know for sure if this is why they do the things. But obviously, as technology progresses and more people are watching, there's more eyes and ears, more citizen science being done. I think that we'll hopefully get more accurate with the various theories. So, of course, one of them is that when the hornbills will sort of arrive and spend a bit of time outside where the dwarf mongoose is sleeping, whether that's in a termite mound or in a fallen log or whatever their little shelter might be, and they'll sit and wait for them to wake up. They might give a call to say the coast is clear. Ooh, we've got, what are those wildebeest coming down too? We'll have a look at them now. And so, yeah, so it's super fascinating that they do that. Obviously, with the hornbills being around, they're like an alarm system. And then when the mongoose are, brave enough to come out, they warm themselves up, groom, and then off they go on their day, foraging for all sorts of things. And yeah, it was really a funny moment. I was having such a bad day too. And when I came around the corner and saw the hornbills and saw the mongoose, I thought, okay, this could be quite good. And then it ended up being quite spectacular. So having that young mongoose, a little pup, there was a couple of them running around, just sort of like, hey, big guy, I want to play with you. But the hornbill was not into it. I don't know how many times it's had a mongoose do that to it too. So it could have been a first time experience for all parties. Cami G, you said Taylor's laughter during that sighting was something I'll always remember. So no one really knows this. I've spoken about it a little bit, but because I was having such a bad day, if you go back and you watch, I forget which date it was and which it was the sunrise drive. and I was sitting on Chitwa's driveway. And if you go back and you watch that entire show, you'll see that every single time I tried to go live, everything would move away. Every bird flew away from me. Every animal moved behind a bush. And at one point, there was even a tree that got up and like migrated across the road. Like it was just honestly ridiculous. And of course, that happens in nature, right? We can't. Sometimes you get it right, and a lot of times you don't. And that's understandable. But when something like that happens every single time you go live, and obviously when we're on these shows, we want to talk about wildlife and interactions. I don't just want to drive around all the time. I was so frustrated and I was angry, and it just was not a great day. So I think I was actually quite pessimistic about arriving at the sighting. If I'm not mistaken, I even said, "Oh, everything's probably going to fly and run away like it has been all morning." And then, it just my whole day kind of turned around. So patience is something that we definitely need to learn, and I definitely need to focus on. TS, you've said that's a great story to hear. So just touching back on Cami G, that laughter was like almost like I was having a nervous breakdown. It was hysterical. Like I couldn't believe my eyes after the really tough morning that I'd had, and just like nothing was going right for me. And then, oh, also the other thing, because obviously I like to tell you guys things, there were some tech issues too, which of course you can imagine happens with technology and being in these wild places. And they had no other feeds to go to. And I was begging them, going, please don't come to me. I can't present. It's so hard. Life is so unfair. Anyways, and then I'm kind of glad that it all happened. It was obviously supposed to happen, and we were meant to catch that moment live. So it was really a great experience to be able to share it with you all. So once I calmed down from the excitement and just how funny the entire scene was, and then just there were so many emotions that I was experiencing. Okay, but enough at Nkoro. We'll come pop out down here. Maybe the wildebeest will drink a bit later. Let's go back to Old Donyo, and I'm hoping that we're finally going to see elephants there. Aha! Not an elephant. Not quite as large as an elephant, but pretty big. We've got a beautiful eland bull. He's just posing so perfectly. I'm sure he's going to make his way down to have a drink at some point. We've been seeing a lot of females. Is it a male? I've now said male, and I'm like, hang on. His horns don't. Yeah, it looks like a male. I'm just also looking at the massive dewlap, and then also the coloration. You can see how it's slightly darker. Yeah, that's. I say this, and I'm like, turn around so I can see you properly. I'm sorry about that. Okay, yeah, so nice big bull. Sorry, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me if it's on my side. My picture just keeps freezing a little bit, so I'm reluctant to continue the conversation in case you're only going to be hearing bits and pieces of what I'm saying. But now you can clearly see the difference between a big earland bull, and then you can see the females moving around. So their horns are so much more slender, they're longer, and it's really special to see these antelope. We don't get to see massive herds all over South Africa. You really have to go up to like the northern parts of the country, northeastern parts of the country to see decent herds. I feel like their distribution is not done particularly well. Eastern Cape also a good area for eland, but that's where well, pretty much the settlers first arrived, so they took over that area. So wilderness areas shrunk, which means that a lot of the species that lived in those spaces kind of went with it. Kolwani, you've said, wow, majestic eland. Yes, they truly are. He's just taking his time though to come and have a drink. Seems like the females might get there before him. And even though they are, so big and bulky in terms of the other antelope species, just like what you said, Kulwani, they are majestic, but they are so nimble. And I know that sounds, like I'm contradicting what I'm saying here, but if you've ever seen an eland jump, it's the most spectacular thing ever. It's just like they defy gravity. Mr. H UAE 87, you said wait for the eastern oryx to come in. Oh, I can't wait for that. That'll be the day. Also don't get to see them, or oryx in general, very often. This is a lovely view. Hi, zebra. I'm so sorry. Would you like some airtime? Apparently, very rude. Coming straight down to have a drink. Oh, there's the oryx. Oh my gosh, Mr. H UAE 87. You called them in.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
Ah, my goodness. TS, you said, like I said before, zebras always want the spotlight. They absolutely do. I mean, there's an entire movie made about them. Racing Stripes, how could we forget? They're just so cheeky. And when I was in Tanzania last year, but specifically the Ngorongoro crater, it was so fascinating to watch. There were just so many zebra around on the crater floor. And we'd literally for about 45 minutes just the interactions There's always zebra fighting. Of course, they're playing, and then some allo grooming one another. So once again, you can never be bored around zebras. Obviously, if it's a smaller group, there's not going to be as many interactions. But when you get lots of them together, it can be quite spectacular. So remember that, and it's worth spending a bit of time. But it seems as though there's elephants at Djuma. Let's go to Djuma quickly. We'll have a look at the elephants there, and then I think we'll pop on over to Namibia's side. Okay, first elephants of the day. Here we go. A nice breeding herd. They're just on the northern side of the Djuma camera. Again, you can hear that wind sort of coming on through. It'll be difficult for us to hear the bird sounds, but we'll try and ignore it. Maybe we'll hear the elephants slurping. A little bit, but not too much. There's such a youngster. Not too tiny, though. Just in the middle. Always entertaining to see. It's kind of hard to tell the age from here, but I'm just looking at how tall it specifically is. So I put it well over a year old, probably even closer to 2 years old. I think I can see little tusks starting to protrude, but obviously that's not a very accurate way to age elephants because tusks are all dependent on genetics. Some might get longer tusks, some tusks might come out a bit earlier. It's the same thing as children. Obviously, young elephants have a set of milk teeth, and then those incisors start to push through. Shazadi Sultana. Great alliteration in your handle. You said, wow, beautiful. Yes, I mean, what's not to love about a scene where there's water and where there's elephants? Whether they'll go in for a swim, I doubt it. I like to be proven wrong, though, especially in that situation. I think they're just popping in quickly for a drink. On windy days like this, elephants won't spend too much time out in the open. They're going to head straight for the thickets. Not very many animals enjoy the wind. Predators don't mind it so much. Obviously, it works in their favor. And I know that Tristan actually message on one of the safari groups. Obviously, there's lots of different vehicles that traverse on Djuma, mentioning that he had, and if you watch the Sunrise Safari, you probably saw it, one Talamati male lion, and he was at Treehouse Dam, and he was watching a herd of buffalo. Good day to go hunting. Look how the elephants, occasionally they've had their trunks up, especially one of the older females right in front, sort of smelling, getting an idea of what could potentially be in front of her. It's very difficult to see through all those trees. And their hearing is not going to be working so well with the wind. I like that there's a young bull by the looks of it, and he's just desperate to have a drink. But he's so worried about being left behind. Like, you'll be fine, buddy. And if you have just joined us on the Life at the Waterhole live camera show, of course, it's great to have you on board, and it is interactive. So there's two ways that you can ask us questions. You can either watch on YouTube and try and comment that way. Otherwise, the preferred method, of course, is to watch on the WildEarth app, or click on the website, and then there's a question box which you can also pop through questions there. So I'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's something you've wanted to know or potentially discuss about various animals. We'll try to keep it relevant to what we're seeing on screen, but of course I'm not opposed to any chats about anything really. You can see that cow at the back's a little bit nervous. See how she had her head raised, her ears are out. She keeps looking behind her, just a bit unsettled. I really do believe, though, that it's because of the wind. Alibamba, you've asked what's the largest herd of elephants I've ever witnessed. Oh, it actually makes me so sad when the questions like this kind of come through, just because of what elephant populations used to be. So the biggest herd of elephants I've ever seen is probably only about 100 or 150 together, which is still quite, impressive. Um, we used to see lots of elephants in Kenya, but again, it's not one big herd, different family groups all feeding, especially in the swamps, in the wetland. What we'll do is, I think we're going to try and back to Namibia and see. They think there was one elephant that was sighted this side, and then I'll continue that conversation. Right, here we are, Okokuyo. We might have just actually missed the elephant that was drinking here, but that's okay. There are a lot of impala. Lots and lots and lots. Alibamba, if we see some more elephants, just remind me. I'll talk about the huge populations of elephants that historically occurred throughout Africa, but we can do that when we see them. We've got not impala, we've got springbuck. What did I say, impala? What on earth is that sound? We've got the zebra. Is it an animal? A mammal? Or was it a bird? I have no idea what that is. I almost want to say it kind of like sounds like a wildebeest or an upset buffalo, but it's also too consistent. So I'm thinking bird of some sort. Crows. Oh, obviously, Taylor. Oh, sometimes, I'm not very smart, but anyways, there's me earlier talking about the pied crows, their extensive vocabulary, and I couldn't put two and two together. And that's what it is, just a crow making a different call. Having a bit of a sing-off. So many of them around here. It's also interesting to see how quickly these animals here come in and then disperse. Although, to be fair, I'd feel a lot safer out in the open. Again, there doesn't seem to be much vegetation around here for predators to conceal themselves. A couple of bushes, sort of on the left-hand side of the screen, or little pockets of them, but if there were lions around, they'd really need to tuck themselves under there before a lot of wildlife came down. Otherwise, nothing will come and drink. Lion H, you've asked, what is my favorite animal and why? Well, it's elephants. My answer to that is always going to be elephants. And the reason why I like them is I enjoy watching the social interactions between the individuals. And they're just magnificent creatures. I love the way that they can feed on so many different things, fruits, I love the way that they have, these incisors that are modified tools, so not used as traditional teeth or how incisors would typically be used. But yeah, there's just something about them. They're so intelligent as well. And then who doesn't love a young elephant, trying to learn how to use its trunk? I mean, there's nothing more comical than that. They swing it around like helicopters. So that's it. But and let me go. Let's go through all of them. Antelope species. What is my favorite? I really like kudu. I enjoy spending time with them. What else do I really like? Obviously, some of the smaller species. Something like a dik-dik is also quite cool. They're so tiny when you see them. They're ridiculous. What else? Predators. Oof, I love lions in terms of the big cats. They're my favorite. There's nothing more powerful than a pride on the move or a big male lion that's not sleeping. And otherwise, the other carnivores love hyenas. I really like jackals, both species, but I think my favorite is a black-backed jackal.
Do you love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
Right. I want to talk about this elephant a little bit more, and specifically going back to Alibamba's comment about what's the largest herd of elephants I have ever seen. And it makes me sad that I wasn't born about 1,000 years ago. I would have loved to have seen the monster herds, the super herds of elephants on the move. So one of the largest migrations of elephants actually happened in West Africa, specifically around Angola, those sort of regions, and they would move all the way sort of to the southeast to Mozambique. And that would have been a spectacular movement. I mean, it's one thing seeing the wildebeest migration in East Africa, or even the zebra migration that happens in Botswana, but imagine seeing elephants all moving in groups where there are thousands and thousands of individuals. One of the big problems, of course, that stop that, as we know, and we speak about it all the time, is habitat loss and the restriction. Putting fences up or just human settlements, building and building, can be problematic. When we quick, Wildy1, you've said hi, Big Ellie. Hello, elephant. I wish I could say hello to it. But one of the biggest things that happened in Mozambique, and I suppose it's quite similar to what happened in Angola too during the civil war in Mozambique, which happened between 1977 and I think 1992, somewhere along those lines. Soldiers would have eaten elephant meat. They also would have shot elephants and used their ivory and sort of traded it. And a huge amount of their population would have been killed over that process. So it's really sad. Same thing would have happened up in Angola, and lots of issues now in Angola with the war that was around that area. They even stole a lot of landmines. So they're actually using elephants and these pouch rats to detect where the mines are to try and eventually disable them. Weezer, you said it's a magnificent shot of a gorgeous elephant. Absolutely, I concur. I like the way that he's slapping his trunk onto the water surface, then quickly slurping up and tossing it all over himself. He's so relaxed, just enjoying life. I'd very much like to come back as an elephant. If you believe in reincarnation, I'd probably want to be a tuskless elephant living in a grassland ecosystem, so possibly East Africa, and then I won't necessarily have to worry about being a southern African elephant, or even in the Greater Kruger and the Sabi Sands, where you really need to. Bunda Basha, you said a lovely Thursday. Yeah, we've actually been quite lucky today with the amount of action that we've had on the various cameras. Although we're battling with the wind in Africa a little bit, it's nice and peaceful in Kenya. Well, I think we'll try and spend time as we can here because it's been quite jarring. I get a bit of motion sickness watching the camera move around because of the wind. Stephen Rousseau, you've asked how old do elephants sort of this is interesting because we can't put age of the maximum age. And the reason why I say this is that, just like what I was saying now, I'd like to come back as an elephant with no tusks. Obviously, I don't want to be potentially be poached, but then I also want to be in a grassland ecosystem where I don't necessarily need to use them. So one of the biggest factors that determines age of elephants is just because of their teeth, and it's something we discuss quite often. So they roughly get about 6 molars throughout their life that push up and move forward, kind of like a conveyor belt, and then they fall out. Sometimes they swallow them. And depending on the type of vegetation that they're feeding on, this will affect the rate at which those teeth wear down. So that's super important to remember. So let's use East Africa, but let's specifically talk about, just frozen a little bit. There we go, back again. So basically with those in the grassland ecosystem in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, there's so much grass available, and there's a lot of red oat grass, Tomita trianda. Okay, no, we're having some issues here. So what we're going to do is let's head to another one of the cameras, which is going to go to Namibia, and hopefully we can continue the discussion about the age of an elephant. Okay, we don't have any elephants, so you'll just have to bear with me, Stephen. I promise we'll get back to that conversation because it's truly fascinating. Still just the spread back. another animal that was hugely affected by hunting, rinderpest, fences, as we were talking about, stopping natural migrations, especially around the Free State province in South Africa. There were huge numbers of them. And some of you might know of it as uh, Transvaal is another area, but this has all kind of happened during the 19th century when the populations of Springbok took a knock. And now, sadly, we don't see the big gatherings. There's desperate attempts to try and assist this, but the around the Free State, the Karoo sort of areas, there's a lot of farming that goes on, and a lot of people have acquired the land and sort of made it private. And of course, what do we do as humans? If something is ours, we want to put formal boundaries up so nobody encroaches on our space. And that's obviously to the detriment of the wildlife. So I don't know how successful they're going to be in that project unless they can get everybody on board. Resilient environments are able to survive, be adaptable.
Did you know that the WildEarth team makes weekly behind the safari content? Would you like to get to know the WildEarth family better? See how we live.
This is Igor's bedroom.
Learn about our production process. And see the antics that happen off camera. Sign up to be an explorer and you will get access to all this content and more.
So that's kind of the splashing that I was hearing. Well, there's an impala that wants to be a springbuck. So much bigger. It's insane. Oh, what's given them all a fright? Everything's moved off. But they're coming back to drink again. Maybe just one individual. Looks like there's a ram, an impala ram that's quite excited. So he could have stirred everybody up around the waterhole. Most likely what's happened. Otherwise, if it was a predator, they would have just kept on running. But they're slowly coming back down to have a drink again. The only time I've really seen antelope in the water is crossing river systems. Again, we have to talk about East Africa because there's, of course, the annual migration. And I've seen Thompson's gazelles swimming across the water. A lot of them don't make it to the other side because of the crocodiles. I've seen eland also crossing, some water areas. Impala too. I have seen impala swimming before, but again, they were chased into water by wild dogs and they were desperately swimming for their lives. So most of these animals are capable of swimming. It's just not necessarily something that they practice all the time, because what's the point? I can imagine when you're in such a dry, arid area, moving down into water, must be just a nice reprieve from the heat. It's really wonderful. They're going right in too. So right now they're not swimming. They're kind of just it's fairly deep, but remember they're small small gazelle species. Oh, and then I'm just getting some inside information. Apparently, the gemsbok also come down and go right into the water. But maybe it's also more area specific, not necessarily having to worry about crocodiles. And obviously, with them coming to drink at a similar point all the time, they'll start to realize that. And that's potentially why they feel a lot safer. Oh, Lorraine, you've actually just popped in and actually said there, no crocodiles in this waterhole. So springbuck, impala, zebra, gemsbok, and elephants love swimming here. That's awesome. That's so great to see. Yeah, I think if waterholes or rivers weren't always infested with crocodiles, not all of them have got high populations of crocodiles, that we would definitely and I mean this kind of just goes to show, this kind of proves it, that everybody loves the water. Very excited about some of the new cameras. Oh, like when I say new locations for me, I should be more specific. As I'm going to learn a lot here, and obviously the only way to learn is by sitting and watching. You can only read so much. There's some bigger animals coming down. Oh, there's gemsbok. There's two gemsbok actually on their way. Perhaps we can have a closer view. You can also hear a guide talking, telling his guests to stay together. Obviously, they want to keep their voices down, so it's quite a nice thing to do, just kind of gather your guests, everybody come close, rather than shouting out loud. Oh, Bundabashi, you said there's a bull coming down to drink. There he comes. So it looks like there's a couple more. I can see another ear. And this is perfect. We'll wait for the Ellies to kind of get you. So with oryx, there's 4 different species that can be seen. There are not very many of them left, however, distributed across Africa. I think it's just under 400,000 was the last count that I sort of read. But most of the population, almost 50% of the population, is kept safe in like sort of private reserves. And you can see how, we obviously want all the ecosystems to be open and interconnected so the animals can move freely. But that's quite difficult to be able to do so. Sometimes it is easier to manage and have private land. And then hopefully once when natural corridors are formed between all these different private reserves, private land, and that the migrations will just happen again. Because essentially animals are consistently migrating. They're always looking for the cleanest water or just water supplies in general and food. So it looks like 3 elephant bulls making their way. I hope they go into the water. It'll be nice. Goodness, if we can get elephants swimming, then this is going to be the best day that I've had so far on the cameras. We really haven't had that many quiet moments, a couple, but it's really started to pick up as the day has progressed. Look how those elephants are following a pathway. Isn't that the most ridiculous thing? Obviously, with the little rocks there, it could be quite unpleasant for them to walk on. So between all the different animal species, they've really worn a path into the ground. This is something I've never had anyone say to me before. Stephen Rousseau, you said that I sound so Afrikaans pronouncing some of the animal names. Really? That is hilarious. I'm incredibly English. My entire heritage comes from, Australia. So everybody lives there. My parents are from there. Their families live there. I was born in South Africa though, and so is my younger brother. But we grew up in a very English household, and elephant, get out of here, Springbok. So I'm trying to actually, Stephen, this is interesting. Which animal names am I saying with more of an Afrikaans accent? Like, that's really funny. I can't wait actually after the show to tell my friends because they'll have such a chuckle because they always tease me and I never speak Afrikaans. Not that I can speak it fluently, but we had to learn it in school. So you start learning it when you're in primary school. And then you continue right up to the end of high school. So it's a good couple of years. But one of my biggest problems was that I didn't practice it. Like we'd all just speak English all the time. So yeah, very much English. I don't. Some people even ask me where I'm from. They don't know. They don't think that I have a South African accent. I think I'm very South African. I think I've got a very Eastern Cape accent. But I need to know which animal names. Gemsbok, is it because I can do my G's? Does it do all the, what else? I don't even say springbok, though. I say springbuck. That's super English. Come on, elephant, come in. You can hear the other ellies splashing around. I don't know if they've gone past, if they've gone a bit further to the left. Goodness, there's all sorts of chaos now. There they are, just having a drink. It sounds like they This camera's audio is great. I'm sure you'll all agree. With the wildebeest also, and all the other animals, the femsbok and things now running away. They didn't spend any time here. Come on, Elise, go in. Perhaps they will after they've had a drink. Oh, okay. Again, I'm getting all of the inside information. So apparently there's also a pump of water. So this pan will fill up with rain, but it is being supplement fed. So very smart elephants, not wanting to drink just anywhere, but again, proving that they do prefer cleaner water. So they're probably just trying to drink it straight out of the little pipe that goes in there. Oh, Stephen, you said the words are gemsbok, and then you said eland as well. So a lot of English people will say eland, which is also appropriate. That's no problem because eland can be a little bit difficult. You said that's exactly how you pronounce it. There's very few people that I speak Afrikaans to, and in fact, my Afrikaans is so terrible now because I don't practice it. I've forgotten a lot of the words. And I have to just quickly tell you a funny story. One day I was driving quite far north in the country, and I was heading into Botswana, and there are a lot of very Afrikaans farming communities up there, big citrus up in that area as well. Actually, just a lot of different types of agriculture, to be honest. And I was driving through this tiny little town, even had like dirt roads. All the street names were in Afrikaans, all the shop names were in Afrikaans, and I thought, oh my goodness, if I break down here, I'm in big trouble. So the entire drive, I was trying to remember how to pronounce certain words and try and string a sentence together. So yeah, that was quite funny. I did panic. I didn't break down though. Oh, right. We've got more elephant action. Let's go back across to Oldonyo. Hello, mister. From the airline desperately trying to sneak in to get a drink. Let's see. It looks like he's already had. His trunk looks quite wet, and the sides of his body look much darker. So he's definitely been spraying himself. Is it the same elephant that we're having a brief look at? I actually didn't take notice of any identifying features of him. I was too distracted, talking nonsense as I usually do. Oh, and a warthog. Hi, warthogs. I haven't seen warthogs here before. Just the two of them. We'll see how this elephant reacts if those warthogs decide to come and drink right beside him. Or perhaps they'll be a bit more cautious. Thank you, Nadine. You've mentioned that it is actually the same elephant. Of course, you know that I cannot do the live at the Waterhole shows all on my own. So we work with an entire team to try and get this going. So a big thank you, Nadine. Cami, you've said that you love this camera angle. It's my favorite too. It's so special here, especially when there's animals like surrounding the entire dam. And I was doing an Africam show where we had so many giraffes, we had so many elephants too, and zebra. Everything was around here. I actually can't believe that they all fit. But we were looking through the giraffe legs, and it was so special. So the giraffe were facing in the direction of where the warthog is, and obviously they bend down, and it was just great to see all the different animals through that angle. I've never seen it before. Hi, piggies. Another animal that obviously loves to go into water and wallow in the mud. Every time the elephant moves, though, they're like, not really. Stephen, just on the Afrikaans topic again, you said it's quite funny in that you also stay in an English-speaking city, but you grew up Afrikaans, so you kind of understand what I'm saying. So you speak more English, and what? I speak so much English, that I even think in English. That's very funny. There's also a really quick drink for the warthogs. Maybe they're going to come round closer to the camera and drink from that side. They'll probably be safer. Wild Wonders, you said that the peaceful water scene would be a grand screensaver. Absolutely. Well, the warthogs are back again. No, and then they're gone. They're even worse than the zebra. It's. I think this is going to be one of the the most popular cameras that we visit regularly, just because of the amount of activity that we have around it. And I think you'll all be able to get some wonderful screenshots. Jerry M, you said, are those warthogs extra large, or is it just the camera angle? No, I think it's just the camera angle. You know where the warthogs look much larger, though, is in the Masai Mara, the Mara Triangle, and the Serengeti. There's just so much food available for them that a lot of the animals, are much bigger, including the impala. So I think with Amboseli, though, obviously the environment is completely different, and it becomes so arid in the dry season, which we're experiencing now, that they aren't able to get as big. But, luscious, good, nutritious food, and particularly grasses, are good, and will definitely account for the slightly bigger individuals, even the buffalo as well. Oh, there we go. Come on, pig. I was just about to say, I think those pigs would be so much happier if they could have a bit of a wallow, and there we go. You can see how the one individual is using its snout and its tusk. Ay, elephant. That's rude. They're not even bothering you. All they're just trying to do is kick up the mud, or use the mud, dig it around a bit, make a nice slushy bath. It's really funny to see the different personalities of the elephants and how tolerant some individuals are with wildlife around them. Like I said, I've seen so many elephants, lots of giraffes, zebra, all of them all drinking at the same time, and those individuals not being perturbed at all. And this guy having to prove his point and chase everyone else away. The warthogs are persistent, though. I'm going back. I'm getting my midday bath, whether you like it or not. There we go. Oh, that's a big roll. We'll see how muddy it is. These poor things. Felt Orca, you have now said, don't worry about struggling with Afrikaans. According to Charlize at Terran, I don't know how to say her name. It's not Terran. I don't know. Anyways, I only like 44 speak it anyway. I suppose that is a bit of a joke in South Africa, right? That not many people speak Afrikaans anymore, but there's still a lot of people that, of course, converse it. Those poor pigs. Warthogs, I wish you could have a separate little mud wallow. Jive Bunny, you've mentioned that old Donyo Ellie boys being bossy to everyone. So it's actually just funny because I haven't really seen them being too bossy. Obviously, we know, though, from past experiences that typically elephants can be a nightmare. And they just chase everyone away. Rashawn, you've also commented on the view of this camera and how magnificent it is. None of you are wrong with your statements. And it's also just like the perfect position away from the pan too, not really disturbing what's going on, but it still allows us that if we do zoom in to get a nice close view. My elephant's not even drinking anymore; he's just sort of playing with the water. We'll see. Hopefully the warthogs actually manage this time, and then we'll try and get a closer look at them. I'd love to see how muddy that little section is that they are rolling in. Not having any luck. They look like they've got some color on them. Is this maybe a female and a youngster? An offspring from last year? Warthogs in Kenya, or they typically rat during, when is it? When was that? They were ratting in May in the Masai Mara, but it could be different up here in the in the sort of Amboseli region, if you will. Again, just because of how arid it is. We'll just be patient, just like these pigs are. I think they're holding out and hoping that the elephant will move away, and then they'll have the entire pan to themselves. There we go. Hello. Well, it's not much mud. I don't think it's particularly deep, and the water that's most likely there, maybe it's from something like the elephants and they're drinking, and they can be quite messy and end up spilling most of the water. This is quite comical. Yeah, definitely a sow and her offspring. Quickly dig, dig, dig. Roll, roll, roll. Get it done before the elephant chases you again. I mean, ideally these pigs would just sit here, for a couple of hours and just enjoy themselves. I don't think they're going to have that luxury today. That elephant's not giving up his spot. I think he's doing it on purpose. There's not even really any bird species around. I feel like there's always birds here, Mr. Elephant. Joan Miller, you've said, good job, Taylor. Thank you. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. And you've also said, and WildEarth, you like this. It's quite entertaining. Obviously, I've got to just try and figure out, I'm just getting into it. A combination of quiet moments, chatting. I will get better. Alibamba, warthog tails are one of your favorite things. I can see why. I think a lot of people will agree with you. Great fly swatters, but of course when they stick them up in the air as they run. And that's also a bucket list sighting that most people want to see when they come to Africa. With warthogs, we don't get to sit and enjoy them too often. They're normally quite shy. Although I had an amazing time at the Chitwa airstrip in the Sabi Sand, where on one of the live drives, where there's a group of warthogs, and I'm assuming they must spend a lot of time at the lodge itself feeding on the nice green grass, because I was hanging around on the airstrip and did not care less about me. And they were quite close to the car, and we just watched them for ages feeding. We were able to go live with them quite a few times. And then watching them rut in the Masai Mara is also great, because it's so open, so you can see so much. In different biomes, you can have more densely vegetated areas, can be quite tricky. to sort of watch animals. So yeah, so I find the Maras great because you don't have to push right up to wildlife. You can just pick your binoculars up and still kind of see what's going on, even if they do run. And that's one of the reasons why so many people love Kenya.
Stay up to date with the latest happenings at WildEarth. Discover what goes on behind the scenes and get a weekly recap of the best moments on the channel.
He's got it! And he's straight up a tree!
Sign up to be an explorer and receive our newsletter written just for you and sent straight to your inbox every week. WildEarth Explorers, a club for people who are passionate about nature.
Thank you for joining us and have a fantastic morning.
Those things. Can you imagine all the insects that must be sitting on top of them? Yes, that grazing over there is a little bit better. Bathroom break? Isn't that a compromising position to be in? It's funny how they just about sit down on the ground when they do their business. Oh my goodness. Look at those long legs. I wonder who that could be. The way that it's walking. Oh, yes, you're trying to settle in. Are you not a bit far away from the water's edge? Oh, God, I would have stepped a bit forward. I say compromising position for the warthog when it defecates, but never mind a giraffe. Ali Bamba, talking about the warthogs quickly, you've mentioned what do warthogs mainly eat. So they feed on a lot of grasses, of course. But they can eat a number of different things. I've also seen them eating lots of marula fruits when they're in season. Probably won't feed on marula fruits in like the Amboseli region, between Amboseli and Savo. So they'll eat fruits as well when available, but predominantly grasses. I'm sure flowers. And then because, like pigs, they're actually omnivores. I have a Brent actually had an amazing sighting all those years ago. I think it was one that was feeding on a scrub hare. I have also seen them like sort of feeding around the carcasses before. Again, not very common necessarily, but typically will feed on plant matter. Here's another opportunity for a screensaver. Well, hopefully, let's see what happens. We'll get more earland coming in. Zebras, oh goodness, squealing, all sorts of havoc happening back there, kicking up lots of dust. And the gemsbok also making their way in. Cami, it is fabulous. The waterhole's really starting to liven up now. Here are all the oxpeckers. Come, gemsbok, I dare you to go drink on the other side of that earland. Oh, even some more giraffe. I don't know why. Come on, giraffe. Come and drink closer to the camera. Open up some space for the rest of the antelope. And, of course, the oryx. The clouds also make it such a pretty scene. All these cumulus clouds. Bit of a snort from the gemsbok. Now, everything looks in such wonderful condition though. Nice and plump. Callisto 1999, I agree, it is great to see so many species together. We don't often see this in South Africa. I can't really say that I have. I think like I'm just trying to think, probably buffalo coming down to drink with hippo in the waterhole, a couple of elephants, and then maybe something like impala. But that's really it. And I think the other thing that makes it so special is that, animals are so big. It's not like we've seen necessarily like okay, obviously we had the warthog come in, but it's big zebra, it's big gemsbok, eland, and then giraffe, and of course elephants. So I think that makes it so much more dramatic. I love the striking markings on the gemsbok. These animals are also amazing how they just don't need to drink every day. Obviously, if there's water provided, they absolutely will drink. They've got great mechanisms to help cool themselves down and avoid water loss. And this female, though, that has got her head down and having a drink, yeah, it looks like a female. She looks pregnant. She's very round around the midsection. There's a male just next to her, getting quite close. Annette, you love the oryx. Well, I'm glad that they made an appearance for you today. And Leah from Canberra, g'day, mate. I don't know why I did that. Please excuse me. The Waterhole show is very relaxing. Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's obviously a slower pace, which is really nice. I like it too. It is really fascinating. Oh my goodness, how I wish I was in this hide right now. Paul, you've pointed out the white socks that giraffes have, and you love them. They do have these lighter colored feet, don't they? Not for very long, especially if they step into the mud. When they change the color of their socks completely. Oh, This female giraffe too, she also looks quite round. I think there might be a little giraffe developing in there. There is a great opportunity. We could have the gemsbok right between the giraffe legs. I'm sure you all saw that. I wonder how this elephant feels. Right, he's been bossing and bullying all the smaller animals, and now an animal has come up that doesn't weigh as much as an elephant does in terms of its mass, but it's taller. So elephant, you've got to look up at the giraffe. And hopefully, when the giraffe, obviously they toss their heads up when they're drinking water, hopefully that elephant gets a taste of its own medicine and also gets sprayed. Oh no. Oh. Okay. Giraffe gone. Elephant also not so sure. There might be people in the hide. Maybe somebody moved around and gave them a bit of a fright. That could be a possibility. Obviously, no one's doing that intentionally. It just kind of happens. It's not a really great big area. It can be quite claustrophobic. Kolwani and Kuna, out of interest, how are waterhole cameras secured against potential damage by the animals? Well, it's a bit of a risk that you have to take. So most of the cameras are positioned quite high up that elephants and giraffe could maybe damage the cameras. But this one here that's quite low down to the ground, obviously there's plenty more things. So I don't know if it's got some protection around it. I actually find it unlikely. We're going to have to ask the individuals who put up the camera, or maybe somebody has a picture of it, and then I can explain better. But I will talk about Kolwani, about camera traps. So, a lot of people will have these sort of high-tech cameras that typically use infrared lights, and they're placed around to see what animals are moving around at night. Maybe even some are used in security sense to make sure that, there aren't people on a property that shouldn't be there. And you have to be quite careful because those cameras need to be positioned quite low to the ground. They are triggered by movement. And with that being said, and at that level, things like hyenas, lions, also elephants will just literally rip them and rip them off and damage them so much that if you are lucky to find it, you're going to have to replace it. So they've built these specially designed cages where the camera is not affected, but it's incredibly difficult for one of those animals to be able to pull the camera from the tree. Elephants are masters of it, and they're so powerful that it definitely gives some protection against the predators. Hyenas being the worst of them and the culprits of stealing cameras. Right, let's pop over back to Namibia, and I think there's some more elephants that have come down. Oh, it's still the three bulls, still the three individuals that we had a little bit earlier that decided to not move away. But I mean, when you can, why would you not want to spend hours and hours at the waterhole? Obviously, they need to go off and eat. But I would definitely spend most of my time just lingering around the water's edge. I'd probably be a very thin elephant. But I wanted to go back to Stephen. You asked, we didn't quite get to finish the topic of how old do elephants typically live for, and I'm trying to be better at finishing off what I was saying. So we briefly mentioned that depending on what elephants will eat determines how quickly their teeth will wear down. So you can imagine in an area like this, elephants are having to eat, well, they don't necessarily have grass all the time. So their teeth are going to wear down a lot quicker. It's kind of quite harsh, arid environments. The same thing goes in South Africa, especially around the greater Kruger area. During dry season, they tend to feed on a lot more of the cambium layer from trees. They'll push over trees and dig up roots. So it's not necessarily so great for them. There's this one cow though in the Mara Triangle, and she hangs around quite far down south in an area called Military, and then a little bit further north of that. And she's the oldest elephant cow I've ever seen in my life. Her tusks are phenomenal. They almost touch the ground. They're thin though. They're not quite big as like a big elephant bull, for an example. But she's so old. her skin is sagging. You can see her spine is exposed. Just as when people age, gravity kind of takes effect. This is what this elephant looks like. I can't even imagine how old she is. But she lingers around this area because the vegetation is quite lush. There's normally, along these streams, there's water available, lots of nice grasses. So that's going to be a bit easier for her to eat. And I can't imagine that she's going to live like too much longer. I doubt she's got very many molars left at all, and probably struggling. And she's not exceptionally thin, but she's losing condition. So there's a big misconception where people think that elephants die of starvation, but it's more like malnutrition, right? That takes a long time, and then yes, eventually the elephants are not going to be able to eat enough, and they just get so weak, and then of course they will die, which is truly sad.
Are you passionate about photography and the wild wonders of Africa? Introducing Africam's incredible virtual wildlife photo competition, where you don't need a fancy camera or to travel across the continent to capture breathtaking shots. All you need is your love for wildlife and our live Waterhole cameras. Simply tune in and snap your favorite moments as they unfold in real time. Start clicking and share the magic of Africa with the world.
Everyone prompted them to shh. What are the antelope at the back that are coming down? Are those kudu? Sort of just in front of the elephants, or just behind the elephants. My bad. Wow, look at how many animals are here. It's definitely kudu, elephants, springbuck, wildebeest, my goodness, zebra. Everyone is now arriving at this waterhole. It's going to be a good contender uh, between, Oldonyo and here. It'll be quite interesting to see where we're going to get the most species diversity. And these animals have to make this journey every single day. So they're going to plan it as a part of their, their daily feeding route. They'll go out and feed for a bit and have to come down to the water at least once. Wow, this is spectacular. For sure. And the more we look around, as they get closer and closer, you just see them funneling in. Annette, sadly, no. Oh, it is time for you to go. Did you say thank you very much? And it's been such interesting commentary. Well, thank you, Annette. Thank you for joining me. And I obviously really appreciate it when you all send your comments in and your questions. It's really lovely to have a chat and to know that I'm not alone here and that we're all sharing these magic experiences together with this wildlife. And I can't wait to see what the rest of. When am I here till Friday next week? We've still got plenty of time, and I think we're going to see some exciting things. If this is only day 2, I can't imagine how good it's going to get. Stephen, you've said that's interesting with regards to the elephants and their teeth determining their age. You saw a big tusker once in Kruger that had huge tusks, almost touched the ground, and you just wondered how old he must be to have such big tusks. So Stephen, just quickly on that, with the length of tusks, that's really all dependent on genetics. So the length at which their tusks can kind of get. So in South Africa, sadly, a lot of those big tusks have been shot out, which is not great at all. But I'm really hoping that with this natural corridor that they're opening up between, I spoke about it yesterday, between Tanzania and Mozambique, trying to make it a safe haven, that perhaps we'll get some more of the genetics from the elephants in East Africa, which is the same species, the savanna elephant, but they tend to have much bigger tusks. And hopefully that will filter down and we can start in Southern Africa and specifically like Mozambique and South Africa. We can start replenishing, and maybe in the future, I think it'll still be quite some time, but we'll start to see more tuskers. It's very sad. You very rarely see them. But the last time I was in Kruger, I was really fortunate. I actually saw quite a few up and coming individuals, which was lovely to see because it's been years and years in the Kruger since I've been seeing tuskers. The real big tusker the biggest tusker I've ever seen is Ezulwini, who spends a lot of time around in Baluli specifically, and then he comes down onto Pridelands quite a bit. But so much to see, and even though you've spent 3 hours with me, I feel like it's so little time. But what a special day. I did not expect to see this, to be quite honest, and obviously Namibia is famous for these pans and all the wildlife that funnels around it. Gaz, you said that I'm so entertaining and informative. Thank you very much. That makes me really happy to hear. I'm glad that I'm keeping you all entertained, and hopefully if you're at work, making your day a little bit more pleasant. If your job is on the tough side, or perhaps you're stuck between a concrete wall. And that's, of course, my mission, is to be able to, like I said, share these experiences with you, learn together, which I think is super important. And just enjoy and appreciate what we have. And I know for a lot of you, wildlife is not necessarily on your doorstep. And again, I've never been to Namibia, so this is really special to be sitting in St. Francis Bay in the Eastern Cape of South Africa and seeing what's going on. So these live cameras that are shown all over the world, it's really just a game changer. Whew, I can't believe it. We've only got a couple of seconds left, which is devastating. But of course, we are going to be doing this all again tomorrow, and who knows what we'll see. I'm looking forward to potentially seeing some predators. So thank you very much, everybody. Remember to join in for the sunset safari a little bit later this afternoon. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.